Welcome to this session, The Changing Landscape of Data Centers. I will be focusing today on the 10 testing solutions that will help you to overcome this extremely changing landscape. My name is Anabel Alarcon, Data Center and NEMS Product Specialist at EXFO, and I will be very glad to talk to you about that today. So with that, let's get started. But what is making this data center landscape change all the time? Well, here are some of the most important reasons. The first one, bandwidth pressure. We know with the current pandemic, the bandwidth demand is increasing exponentially, and infrastructure is pushed to the limits, not only in residential interconnections, but also inside the data center. Applications like gaming and video on demand are some of the examples of this bandwidth-hungry traffic. The second reason is data center growth. And what do we refer with this? The growth of this market continues to rise, barely impacted for the pandemic. The migration to the cloud, the multiple announcements of new data center locations dedicated either for hyperscale or colocation companies continue to impress everyone. And the rise of the edge data centers finally arriving to cover specific region needs and decreasing latency are also reshaping the horizon. And finally, but not least important, the infrastructure. The scale of the fiber deployments in the data center, the exponential number of elements interconnected, either servers or switches, and the wide variety of pluggables managed are part of the infrastructure challenges that data center managers and technicians have to face during this non-stop growth. Related to infrastructure, we will be focusing on interconnection infrastructure. Basically, how you can make sure the fibers and the pluggables, either transceivers or AOC cables, that make possible the transportation of all the information needed are working correctly and properly. There are two main areas we will cover: challenges inside and outside the data center. Inside of the data center, we have two different types of challenges related to deployment or troubleshooting. And opposed to what everyone believes, that inside of the data center everything is running correctly and everything is green, we know that there's a lot of failures inside data centers, and some of the time of the technicians is spent either in deployment or even in troubleshooting. So these are some of the challenges we see based on infrastructure inside of the data center. The first one is the different types of fiber, either multi-mode or single mode. We know that in some data centers there's mix, in some of data centers there's only single mode fiber, and in others is only multi-mode. So the challenge of deciding which one and test it is something that managers and technicians have to consider. The next one is the different types of connectors. We know that there are different types of connectors for the multi-mode fibers and different for the single mode fibers. Either it's UPC, APC. So we know that there's a level of complexity inside of this type of connection. So in this presentation, we're gonna tell you some of the elements that you can find to test them. And finally, the different type of pluggables that we know they are very important to transport information. They are some of the most important pieces that let the information go from server to switch, from switch to router, and from router to the end user. So we know the pluggables, it's an element that it's important, but we need to know how to test it. So basically, in this presentation, we will show you ways from how you can make sure these elements are working properly. And also, we're going to cover a little bit of outside the data center, because outside the data center, there are some challenges. For some of the companies that they own their own fiber and they interconnect data center to data center, With dark fiber, basically is most of the same challenges, the type of fiber, the type of traffic, the pluggables, but there's also another level of complexity there when the data center is connected to a metro network. So in there, the data center managers have to deal with carriers, with even co-location interconnections. So there's another element of complexity there. So we're going to show some elements that are going to help you to test that. And finally, there are different types of technologies. I'm going to tell you about some of the latest trends that we have for this type of connections. And with that, let's move on to the testing elements. Once we know what are some of the challenges inside and outside the data center, I would like to talk to you about solutions. And with that, I want to talk to you about EXFO. At EXFO, we believe in solutions to make your life easier, bringing them at your fingertips with flexible and long-lasting testers that help you to troubleshoot, deploy, and find all the solutions to the challenges we just discussed. And this is one of the solutions we are bringing to you at EXFO. We call it the new OTS system, and it's an innovative technology that will allow you to adapt to the interface testing needs that you have. This module basically offers ultimate flexibility and upgradability, which means that in place of having static ports or fixed ports, you can actually adapt the port that you need while you're testing or for your testing. For example, in this case, this module that I'm showing here has 2 ports of SFP28 and 2 ports of QSFP28, but you could also exchange that for a CFP4 port, or you could adapt it for synchronization measurement purposes. And also, it will adapt to the future because, as we know, this landscape continuously changes. So if there's any new interfaces in the horizon, we will be able to provide you a new type of interface that you could exchange in the module. So with this, we really provide you a tool that can adapt to any interface that it's today in the market or it's coming. And this innovative solution, the OTS system, is included in the module that I mentioned, FTVX 88-60. This module can be inserted in a portable platform like the one you're seeing here, FTV1 Pro, making it a very complete solution. And I'm going to show you what are some of the use cases that you could cover with this test set. The first one is, and considering that one of the most important challenges inside of the data center are the transceivers, is transceiver validation. With this platform, either if you are deploying or either if you are troubleshooting any transceiver, you just have to take the transceiver, insert it into the module, run our intelligent application called iOptics, and after 2 minutes of the testing equipment going through 5 different subtests, you can identify if this transceiver is working correctly or not, just with a pass-fail verdict. This tool is very useful when you really need to do validation for transceivers, but it not only stops there. You can also validate AOC cables. Basically, you could do it in the same test set or even using 2 different testers when the cable is deployed and you have the section of the transceiver on different locations. You can also run our intelligent application iOptics, and after 2 minutes, you could determine if the cable is working correctly or not with a pass and fail verdict. And finally, if you need to do, or if part of your process of deploying fiber or troubleshooting fiber inside of your data center includes fiber characterization, with this tested, you could do that using the OTDR section that is included in the test. You could just run or intelligent application called IOLM, and you could determine if there is any problem in your deployment. With this kit we really want to give you as much as possible to test. Moving on to higher rates, the FTVX 8860 module supports 200 and 400 gig rates. It also provides ultimate flexibility, allowing you to insert the interface that you are specifically testing, helping you to prepare your infrastructure for the next level. In this demonstration, you can see how easy and flexible is the insertion of these interfaces in the module. And continuing with the use case inside of the data center, we are seeing more and more that now the interconnections between data center switches and data center routers, either for the aggregation or the distribution layer, are increasing or are moving from 100 gig Ethernet to 200 and 400 gig. So more and more is needed to test this type of rates inside of the data center. That's why we are putting at your fingertips this solution called the FTVX 88460 that help you to start validating this type of interconnections, but not only those, ones that are getting really popular that are called breakouts, where in that way you can already start of testing multiple 100 gig links at the time with the same fiber. Basically, what this type of transceiver or interconnections propose is to have in the same 400 gig transceiver 4 different 100 gig links that could go to either the same switch or different switches inside of the data center. This is a trend that we are seeing coming more and more. And with this solution, you will be prepared for that and for the interfaces that come in the future. And in the case of the outside data center solutions, as I mentioned, there were two main challenges for the outside interconnections from the data center, from the infrastructure perspective. Basically, the challenges are that the routers that take the traffic out either are doing it through dark fiber, which is when the infrastructure is owned. And for testing the infrastructure in this perspective, you will need to do tests like RFC 2544 or even bit error rate tests over a period of time. This is the typical way we used to test 100 gig, and now moving on to 400 gig would be the same. So this type of module, the FTVX 88460, will be already ready for that. But another important trend that we are seeing is the coherent optics. And if you haven't really identified or know what are they, these transceivers, what are going to do is basically allow you to interconnect directly to your transport infrastructure. They are actually going to handle a specific modulation that will make it capable of talking to the transport elements. So I really strongly recommend you to look about this trend because it's coming very strong. And also, the advantage of using this type of optics is that they will allow you to interconnect longer distances. This type of transceivers will offer distances from 100, 120 kilometers for reach. So this module will allow you to be ready for that. But if you haven't checked this type of technology, I really, really strongly recommend you to investigate. And also, if you need some advice, please let us know, and we will be very glad to discuss that with you. At EXFO, we are very happy to bring an easy-to-use and complete portfolio that will help you to overcome the infrastructure challenges inside and outside your data center. Fiber inspection is still very important, not only for 100 gig, but also for newer rates like 200 and 400 gig. This is why EXFO is bringing the fastest inspection experience ever with our new FIT 500. Please check it out. You will not regret it. At EXFO, innovation is part of our DNA. That is why we are bringing at your fingertips a new breed of fiber testers that will make your fiber verification super easy. Please discover our new OX1. It will be a new experience for you. And finally, Either for 100 validation or 400 gig, go to the next level with our ultimate flexibility in Ethernet testers. With that, thank you so much for following this presentation. We really appreciate your time. Please continue the conversation. Reach us out in social media or our website. I will be extremely happy to see you again.